Hello, duelists, and welcome back to the King's Court. Or, if this is your first time here, welcome to the King's Court. Now that we've passed our first off, really, I know, I overdo this sometimes, but we just want to thank you so much for our first year here on YouTube. We've honestly can't believe a year has already gone by. It feels just like I don't know, a month ago we started the channel. So for those of you who give us a chance to subscribe and all that and watched our videos, thank you so much. And we plan on making the next year even better. So, we want to try dipping our toes in this sort of thing. We want to try more. We enjoy doing deck profiles and discussion videos and stuff like that, but we want to try doing some other style videos. So, this is going to be our first top 5 or top pick video, and we plan on doing more of these in the future. So since the ban list just recently came out, and the opinion on the ban list, that's a whole other can of worms. So maybe we'll do a video discussing that's our opinion on the idea of small versus big ban list, because we played this game for a very long time, both competitively and casually. So we're used to both big and small ban lists. So if you want to see that, like the video so we know that there is interest, and also, might as well get this out of the way now. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. If you haven't already subscribed, go ahead. I'm sure you'll find some kind of content here on the channel you enjoy. We do mostly lately it's Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh mostly. So if you enjoy either of those, the TCGs and all that. And we plan on uploading some more other videos we wanted to do. Like, if you're interested in Smash Bros, we plan on uploading more of that soon. So if you're interested in any of those, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and also let me know in the comments, what is some other top 5s you want to see, or like top 10s you want to see, and would you want more top 10s or 5s? I went with 5 just because it seems like a good way to like I said, dip our toes in this. This is the first time we've done this, so if you're watching this, thank you for checking this out, and let's get to it. So, because the most recent ban list came out, we thought we'd do like a almost prediction video style. Like, this is going to be the decks that we think are going to be the top decks in the meta going into the future format, which I believe will take place September 25th, which is next Monday, if I'm recalling right. Sometimes my calendar is, sometimes my internal calendar is a little off. Is that the right term? Whatever. Anywho, sometimes my timing's off. Like if I remember, yeah, my phone says so. The 25th, so that's a Monday. Cool. So, we wanted to discuss what we think are going to be the top decks. These are both our opinions, and as well as from our research, what other people have predicted, and as well as the latest polls from even though yes, YCS Cancun was before, was going on when the ban list got announced, we feel like still, though, the results of that still matter because it was the latest YCS before this new ban list. We're also going to be going over from what the ban list hit so we can get an idea of what depending on the ban, because there are decks that both lost and won from the ban list, so some got away scot-free. So decks like that will be here. Now, really quickly, also, this is primarily opinion based / research from all that we've done through looking at other videos, other people's opinions, looking at online on Twitter what people think, stuff like that. So, but if you don't agree with this, there's always going to be people who don't. Let us know in the comments what you think are going to be the top decks going forward. And that's pretty much the entire intro. For the record, also, some of the placements here aren't really that big of a deal. Like, I personally think all the decks mentioned here are really good because Yu-Gi-Oh's in a really interesting place right now. We're in a place where the decks right now aren't completely unplay. It wasn't like a couple of months ago or at the beginning of the year when Kashtira was at full power. I mean, Kashtira was, but when Tier Limits was at full power and nobody wanted to play the game. So, it's not like that. I feel like right now Yu-Gi-Oh's in an interesting and honestly really cool spot where there are multiple decks you could play if you want. And not even just meta decks, like rogue decks can even do well right now. So if you're a rogue player like me, hey, this is a good time right now. So I don't feel like any of these decks are inherently bad whatsoever based on their placements, is what I'm saying. We're just going through numerically for the sake of the video. So, just want to get that out, and let's go to the first one, number 5. Rescue Ace. Now, I've played against Rescue Ace a couple of times now, and from what originally I always thought Rescue Ace is just, I didn't think it was that great, on paper, until you actually see it in action. And yeah, this deck can be difficult to deal with, especially if you're not prepared. This deck can easily set up multiple ways to prevent itself from being destroyed, and with how fast it can be too, thanks to having Hydrant. I mean, obviously, they get their. It's one of those weird decks where they have 2 effects, kind of like pendulums, but in the forms of like their spells and traps. Because not only do they get their primary effects, but if you have Hydrant out, they get their even better, more advanced effect, I guess you could call it. And when you have Hydrant out, and they can easily set up turn 1 a ridiculous, crazy field if you have like no hand traps to stop them. Like for playing against it, obviously Droll works well against them. Ash does incredibly. Sorry, Imperm is always good, and honestly, from what I can tell, called by, or like if you can get rid of their Hydrant and somehow get rid of it from the graveyard, like banish from the grave, like with called by or something. This deck is one of, like, it doesn't suffer, but I mean it does suffer, but it still can play. That's the crazy part. So this is honestly just a really solid deck, I feel like. And honestly, just in general, I don't really, it's like a good all-arounder. So that's one. Plus, it could take advantage of cards like Pot of Extravagance, because it really doesn't care about its extra deck. So that's one thing to be wary of, because Pot of Extravagance, a lot of people have been saying that card should probably get hit too. So it would, and if you have Pot of Prosperity, even better. You can play both of them in this deck, so you can make this deck incredibly consistent. So finding their Hydrant really shouldn't be a big issue. So that's one right there. I mean, that's number 5 right there. Not much else to say. Number 4, Chimera. Now, this deck is nasty. It's debatably pretty much the best fusion deck in the format. And that hurts me as a hero player saying, but I gotta be realistic. This is by far the best fusion deck. One, it can easily take advantage of all the fusion tools we have right now. Branded Fusion didn't get hit, and neither did Super Poly. Both those cards are alive and well, and this deck can easily take advantage of it. Not only that, if played right, you can't stop this deck, realistically. Sorry about that. If I remember right, I haven't played against it a lot. I've only played against it a couple of times. Like, it's kind of I wouldn't say expensive, but it's not like a cheap option. There are good amounts, but basic, and I think like most of them are like ultra and above. I think like a lot of them are secret or something. I don't know. Either way, though, this deck, like, it just won't die, basically. I think that's like the main gimmick of the illusion monsters. They don't die, basically, something like that. So basically, this deck is like just a crazy overall good pick, and it was topping a lot when it first came out. I think it's kind of slowed down a little bit, like just a little bit recently, but I feel like this deck is just going to explode more with the Rise Archon, because I feel, and I'm going to be honest with you, some of the other decks we mentioned in this video later are honestly, I think, gotten a lot better just because with the Rise Heart being gone. So that's my number 4 choice. Runick did not get hit. Now, by Runick, I don't just mean like pure Runick. I feel like the mixtures, this deck can be slashed into multiple decks. So, it's obviously its most famous incarnation is Runick Plunder, not Plunder. Well, actually, I think you even take them in Plunder, but not the point. Runick for Hire, Sprite for Hire. Yeah, Runick Sprite for Hire is obviously the most famous incarnation of this, and debatably still the best one. And that deck didn't get hit whatsoever. Runick Fountain stayed at 2, and I'm not going to lie, like a lot of people, I thought this thing was going to get hit to 1. But no, this deck is still crazy at 2, and it has, basically, it can just get the player so much advantage. So honestly, I feel like Runick, like, incarnation, I guess you could call it in general, is still going to be a very lively pick for the upcoming meta. But if I had to really put money on it, I would say more Runick for higher Sprite is going to be the main one we're going to see. Now, for the record, these next ones are decks that didn't get hit by the ban list because I feel like these decks are still ridiculously good. Purrley. Another one. It's interesting. This deck, this format, from what I've been hearing, is being referred to as pet formats. And one of the culprits is this kitty, Purrley Noir, and Purrley in general. What can you say? This thing just is hard to hit, like, if you're not prepared, is very difficult to deal with. And the fact that with a good hand, this card can let this deck in general lets you draw like what +9, I think, something crazy like that. So realistically, Purrley did not get hit whatsoever, and honestly, this is why I feel like players are still going to most likely side deck or main deck Book of Moon. Yeah, Rise Heart was the big reason people played Book of Moon or Book of Eclipse, but this is also another one because that's how you deal with this thing. So I feel like Purrley is still going to be an extremely used deck, and I feel like we're going to keep seeing this kitty everywhere. Alright. Now, normally we'd go into like a number 1, but I got a few honorable mentions I want to mention. I said mention twice. Sorry about that. I got a few honorable mentions that I want to put just because these are decks that I feel like are definitely going to be seen in the meta, and I feel like these three are like toss-ups you really could have put anywhere in this spot, like in these places. Like I would say number 2 and 1 are the mainstays, but numbers I feel like even Runick as well, because Runick's not really getting like a lot of play lately. I could be wrong. I'd have to look at the results from the Cancun YCS, but I don't think any I don't think Runick got like top 16 this time. I could be wrong. I might be, but I didn't see it at all. So I feel like numbers 3, 4, and 5 you could actually switch around with these next choices I'm going to put based on what you think is more powerful. Or not even more power, just like what do you think is probably going to be seen more. Honorable mentions A, Floowandereeze. Come on, a lot of people were talking about with a certain deck that may or may not be mentioned here, that this is a deck that could be used to deal with them. And Floowandereeze have not been touched or dealt with whatsoever. I feel like this is one of those decks that people practically grunt or something at the idea of playing against. I can say for sure I don't like dealing with this deck either, but it is what it is, and it is a strong deck. I feel like though a lot of reasons that people hate playing against this deck is the same reason a lot of people hate playing against tier limits. They want their turn to be their turn. So the fact that this deck can do that, and as well as M-Pen just being just an annoying little penguin, is like just obviously a lot of players just don't want to deal with it. So that's one. That's one of the choices. I feel like you could put this anywhere in the top 5, but I'm only putting it in honorable mentions just because I feel like it's going to get more play as soon as the new ban list is put into effect. Branded. And I didn't even put, just like Runick, I feel like you could really say Brandon incarnations, because there's multiple ways you could use Brandon. Brandon Fusion didn't get hit, and I feel like as long as this card's still at 3, people are going to be messing around with this deck in any way they can. So in this engine, whatever you want to call it. We've all seen main branded decks, like the main deck itself. Like we've all seen it, and it always does well. And let's be real, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Go to any locals, you'll see at least 2 or 3 players main decking branded. So obviously this deck is going to be in the meta for a long time, and there's not much else to say about branded that hasn't already been said. Marincess. Now, this is another deck that I think I probably could have put. Maybe I should have actually put this instead of Runick. I don't know, just because Rescue Ace and Chimera still get a lot of play. But Marincess, I don't know, like, I remember at the beginning of the year, Marincess was getting a good amount of play. and then it just disappeared for a little while, and now it seems like out of nowhere, Marincess is topping again, which I think is pretty cool. Now, this deck is debatably, um, now this deck is very difficult to deal with if you're not prepared. One, they can keep bringing back their water monsters, keep going into crazy links that are extremely difficult to deal with, and not only that, they have access to Bahamut Shark, which will give them their totally awesome. So going turn one, they are definitely they can end on a field that's pretty difficult, annoying to deal with if you're not ready. And they also have access to Kraken. I forgot the full name. Basically, the fact that they can turn all their opponents' monsters into water monsters, and they can take advantage of that is just crazy. So honestly, Marincess I feel like is a very top competitor. And that's it for the honorable mentions. There's a lot of other decks out there that are just really good right now. Like I said before, I think Dark World's going to get more play. There's Rika Sun Avalon, which I was this close. You can't really see, but I was super close to putting in here. That's another deck, and oh man, that deck is annoying to deal with. So, like I said before, Yu-Gi-Oh's in a really interesting place where there are a lot of decks to choose from to play. Now, I feel like this is going to be a controversial pick for number one, and someone in the comments is going to right away start saying I'm wrong and give me a whole paragraph saying why. Happens all the time with these kind of videos. All right, and okay, I feel like Kashtira. Now, before you hit the dislike button and before you unsubscribe, now listen. Now hear me out. Kashtira, even though Arias Hard's gone, they still have 3 Fenrir. They still have. I'm screwing with you. Oh man, I just want to. I can't wait to see the analytics and to see how many people disliked right away at this moment in the video. No, I'm kidding. Of course, it's Unchained. Oh man. Oh boy. Okay. Real talk. Unchained is a crazy beast of a deck. They're fiends, so not technically pun intended. Unchained Abomination, first off, is a monster of a card. Now that is pun intended. This deck combined with Purrley, but especially this deck, is the reason that this format is being called pet format. This deck is a monster, and not only one is it crazy consistent. The fact that there's so much innovation behind this deck, thanks to players like Pack, and because now that they have axe, they have their new support, but also the fact that they can take advantage of DDD cards like High King Caesar. Am I saying that right? The Water Exceeds one to take advantage of that is just crazy. So the fact that they can link off your opponent's monsters, it's like playing against a deck of nothing but Underworld Goddess. So this deck is this great, and I feel like this is going to be the deck that a lot of people are going to be citing to deal with. I'm not gonna lie, as a hero player, I can honestly say this deck is difficult to deal with because a lot of hero cards like to destroy cards. DPE, Sunrise, tons. If you're playing the Neos deck, armed Neos, a lot of cards in there like to destroy, and a lot of cards in general like to destroy. So I feel like, as a result of this, I feel like a lot of people are going to be not playing Lightning Storm as much. Probably even Feather Duster might even cut out. And I feel like because of this deck, a lot of people are going to start main decking Cosmic Cyclone again. So that's just an example right there of how I feel like people are going to start changing up their play style just to deal with this deck, and it is nuts. I think it's already close to like borderline tier 0, because tier 0 you got to be like what 85% of a top, because if I remember right, at a not a YCS, a regionals or something, or I'm not sure, it got like top 9 placings out of the top 16, I think. Something insane like that. So this deck, I've been hearing some people say it might become that. So this deck is honestly just, I can't phrase it. It's a monster of a deck. And I'm not gonna lie, I like it because I've said this before. Unchained Abomination looks like my dog. If you ever seen the pictures we shared on our Instagram about our dog, so that's pretty much the entire video. All right. So this was our first, like I said, top countdown video. If you want to see more in the future, let us know, and let us know what subjects you would want us to discuss over like this. I'm thinking maybe next, maybe the top rogue decks that could be used in the upcoming format. Since I'm a hero player, I'm a rogue player, so maybe something like that. I don't know, something cool. Or we definitely, me and channel member Michael have one planned soon. We're going to be doing one on the new 151 Pokemon set that's going to be coming out. So if anyone watching this also plays the Pokemon TCG, be prepared for that. We should be coming out with that next week after it drops. So that's the entire video, and honestly, just thanks for stopping by. Take care. Bye.